1725. The various schemes which were put forward to restore the House of Stuart to Great Britain were numerous, indifferently concocted, and ineffectual. With whatever court Britain happened to have a quarrel, thither came the unfortunate Chevalier of the House of Stuart to show his miseries and to boast his pretensions. But though treated with decency, and sometimes fed with hopes, the Chevalier found his eloquence too feeble to persuade any government to make common cause with him. From these failures, the adherents of the House of Stuart transferred the hopes of their party to the spirit and talents of his eldest son, Charles Edward, whose external appearance and personal accomplishments seemed, at first sight, to justify his high pretensions, and to fit him well for the leader of any bold and gallant enterprise. Prince Charles Edward was a youth of tall stature and fair complexion. His features were of a noble and elevated cast, but tinged with sadness. His manners were courteous, his temper apparently good, his courage fit for the most desperate undertakings, his strength of constitution admirable, and his knowledge of manly exercises and accomplishments perfect. These were all qualities highly in favour of one who prepared to act the restorer of an ancient dynasty. On the other hand, his education had been strangely neglected. Instead of being made acquainted with the rights and constitution of the English nation by his tutors, they had taken care to train him up exclusively in those absurd, exaggerated, and antiquated doctrines of divine hereditary right and passive obedience. "You, sire, have been chosen and are guided by God. It is the duty of every subject to obey your command and to be willing to sacrifice everything for their prince," they declared. Such were the principles instilled into the mind of the descendant of the ill-starred House of Stuart. An agent was employed to advocate the cause of the Jacobites at Paris, at first without much success. But when Britain began to act in the German war, the French court seemed suddenly to have taken into serious consideration a descent upon Scotland. Cardinal de Tencin therefore invited Charles Edward to Paris. The young prince, on receiving a message so flattering to his hopes, left Rome as if on a hunting expedition, but instantly took the road to Genoa, and embarked on a small vessel, ran through the English fleet at great risk of being captured, and arriving safe at Antibes, proceeded to Paris. There it was agreed that a French army of 12,000 men should be landed in England under the celebrated Field Marshal Saxe, and Charles left Paris to superintend the embarkation, taking up residence at Gravelines in the beginning of February 1744. The French fleet set sail, but off Torbay they were confronted by a fleet of 21 sail of the line under Admiral Sir John Norris. The elements also took part in the strife, and, as usually happened on former occasions, decided against the House of Stuart. A heavy tempest arose, obliging both the English and French to run before the wind. The French fleet was dispersed and suffered damage. The plan of invasion was once more given up, and the troops were withdrawn from the coast. It was after this miscarriage that Charles Edward determined to try his own fate. "These Frenchmen," he complained to his advisers, "they turn tail at the first sign of trouble. Let us hire a boat and go to Scotland. There I am sure I have many friends who will join me." In the Highlands of Scotland, the inhabitants retained the dress, language, manners, and customs of their fathers, and more nearly resembled their predecessors of centuries long since past. The chief was still the leader in war, the judge and protector in peace. The whole income of the tribe, consisting of numerous but petty articles of rude produce, was paid into the purse of the chief and served to support the rude hospitality of his household, which was extended to the poorest of the clan. It was still the object of each leader by all possible means to augment the number capable of bearing arms, and of course they did not hesitate to harbour on their estates an excess of population, idle, haughty, and warlike.